You've been lied to, not by one person, not by strangers, but by everyone who claims to care about you, your friends, family, lovers, even yourself at times. The truth is uncomfortable, almost unbearable. Most people do not care about you, not truly, they only pretend. And the moment you face that, everything changes. Think about it clearly. How often have you shared your struggles, only to be met with empty sympathy or advice that doesn't fit? How often have you called someone close, hoping they'd notice, hoping they'd prioritize you, only to realize your call is a faint echo in their world? Sartre understood this better than most. He called it the brutal reality of human relationships. The majority of people interact not with who you are, but with the version of you that benefits them. This is the psychology of performance, and it's everywhere. In your friend group, the one who laughs at your jokes but vanishes when life turns dark. In the office, where colleagues compliment your ideas but are nowhere to be found when challenges arise. Even in love, where words of devotion are abundant, but actions are scarce. You are surrounded by actors, and you are often cast in a role written by someone else's needs. And here's the hidden danger. The illusion works because you allow it. You train yourself to believe the act. You interpret convenience as affection, attention as care, and presence as loyalty. But the world doesn't work that way. People's motivations are rarely pure. Most actions are transactional. Most smiles are conditional. And the moment the utility disappears, the friend, the partner, the co-worker, they disappear too. Sartre said, "We live in a world of appearances, and others are performing constantly, even in the smallest interactions. Their behavior toward you is a reflection of what they need from you, not who you truly are." This is not cynicism, it is clarity. And clarity is uncomfortable. When you finally understand that most people's care is performative, it cuts deeper than any betrayal. Because for years, you've been waiting for authentic attention that was never meant to be given. But there is power in knowing this. If no one truly cares about you, then no one can control your worth. Your happiness, your choices, your freedom are not tethered to the fickle approval of others. You begin to see the patterns, the hollow compliments, the disappearing calls, the excuses that feel like cold walls. And the world suddenly looks different. Not smaller, but sharper. Not emptier, but more honest. In this recognition, you start to uncover the first uncomfortable truth. You have been acting as if people cared because pretending was easier than facing reality. And that pretense has shaped much of your life. Your expectations, your attachments, your disappointments. You've built your hopes on illusions. Ask yourself now, who in your life is performing, and who is real? Who shows up only when it suits them, and who invests without calculation? The answers may shock you, and the moment you see clearly, you begin the most difficult process of all, disentangling your life from the performances around you and reclaiming your own autonomy. Because understanding this is the first step. Awareness precedes freedom, and while the world may not give you what you want, the truth will give you what you need: clarity, discernment, and the first taste of independence. Are you beginning to feel it? The smiles, the compliments, the attention, they're rarely what they seem. People rarely act without purpose. Most gestures of care are calculated, deliberate, and self-serving. They are transactions, disguised as friendship, love, or loyalty. And the harsh truth is, you've been buying into them, thinking they were genuine. Think about your closest connections, that friend who always shows up when life is easy, but vanishes the moment you need support. That coworker who congratulates you on your achievements, but quietly resents your progress. That romantic interest who showers you with affection only until someone better comes along. These patterns are not accidents. They are the human condition in action, stripped bare by Sartre's philosophy. People act in ways that serve themselves, not you. That is the uncomfortable, invisible law you live under. And here's where it cuts deep. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. They are performing unconsciously, wearing roles to satisfy societal expectations, personal vanity, or selfish desires. They believe they care, but their actions are guided by convenience, benefit, and image. Sartre called this bad faith, lying to oneself while projecting authenticity outward. Everyone, to some degree, participates in this performance, and you are not exempt. Now consider your own responses. How often have you excused someone's absence or dishonesty because it wasn't their fault? How often have you reassured yourself that their intentions were pure, even when your instincts screamed otherwise? This is the psychological trap. By pretending that others genuinely care, you give your attention, energy, and trust to illusions. You validate their performance. You reinforce their roles, and in doing so, you deny your own clarity. But understanding this is power. The moment you see that smiles, words, and gestures are often transactional, you begin to question the world on a different level. You start to notice patterns, the vanishings, the conditional attention, the calculated support. And each realization sharpens your perception, teaches you discernment, and frees you from misplaced attachment. You no longer see people as uniformly benevolent. You see them as they are. Complex, self-interested, performing, sometimes oblivious, and often unreliable. And here is the brutal awakening. Not everyone will care, not even when you deserve it. Expecting otherwise is weakness, a self-imposed trap that has likely led to disappointment after disappointment. Accepting the transactional nature of human behavior doesn't make you cynical. It makes you awake. It arms you with understanding, and understanding is the only weapon that protects your mind from constant manipulation. Sartre's lesson is simple, yet terrifying. We cannot control others' intentions. We cannot rely on their authenticity, and pretending that they will act otherwise only traps us further. Freedom, in its purest form, is recognizing that no one owes you care, attention, or loyalty, and that you must navigate the world armed with this awareness. This awareness is uncomfortable. It burns. It challenges every assumption you've made about the people around you. But it is the price of clarity. Because once you see the truth behind every smile, you stop being a passive player in other people's performances. You reclaim your observation, your judgment, and ultimately, your power. Let that sit in your mind. Observe the patterns around you tomorrow and notice who shows up, who vanishes, and who performs. The world doesn't change, but your perception of it does. And perception's everything. Have you noticed it? That subtle tug, that invisible leash, that feeling that you must respond, act, or perform in return. When people pretend to care, it's not just harmless deception. It's a psychological lever. Every smile, every compliment, every show of attention is calibrated to shape your behavior, your decisions, and even your sense of self. You are being manipulated, often without realizing it. Think about it. How often have you gone out of your way to help someone, to prove your loyalty, or to win approval, only to find their gratitude shallow or fleeting? That's not coincidence. That is performance, and you are the audience. They pretend to care, and in doing so, they guide you toward outcomes that serve their interests. Sartre would say this is the subtle tyranny of appearances. You are responding not to authenticity, but to projections designed to make you compliant. And it works because humans are wired to seek validation. Your mind craves signs of care, approval, and acceptance. That craving blinds you. You see warmth where there is calculation, loyalty where there is convenience. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you start shaping your life around these illusions, making choices, forming attachments, and investing energy in ways that do not serve your true freedom. Now, here's the part most people never admit. The moment you realize the care was never real, the sense of betrayal is immense. Anger, frustration, disappointment all emerge because your expectations were built on illusions. But the deeper truth is even harsher. This is not only about others. You have allowed yourself to be guided by performance. You have given your attention, time, and emotional energy to people who were never truly invested. Sartre would call this a form of self-deception intertwined with social reality. You pretend that care is genuine because it is easier than facing the discomfort of truth. You tell yourself they care, they must care. But in reality, their performance is just that, a performance, and by believing it, you become part of the play, trapped in a cycle that serves no one but the actors. This is the point where most people falter. They confront the act of others, but fail to confront their own role in perpetuating it. You are not helpless, but you must act. Awareness alone is insufficient if you continue to invest in illusions. You must begin to observe, to question, to measure authenticity, not by words, but by consistent action. And here's the first taste of liberation. When you start to recognize the manipulation, you regain choice. You no longer need to seek approval where it isn't earned. You no longer need to shape your life to satisfy someone else's performance. You begin to reclaim your autonomy, slowly, deliberately, piece by piece. But this process is uncomfortable. It challenges every assumption you've held about friendships, relationships, and loyalty. It exposes the gap between reality and appearance, forcing you to see people as they truly are, not as the comforting illusions you want to believe. And only when you embrace this discomfort can you begin to step out of the web of pretending into a world where your actions, choices, and attention are truly yours. By now, you've begun to see it. Everything they do pretend to care is just a tool conditioned to manipulate how you respond, give, adjust, and perform in return. Those emotional chains are invisible, but they are very real. Every act of compliance, every self-denial, every compromise built on their fake care strengthens the control they have over you. And the worst part, you don't even notice. You think it's love, friendship, or duty, but it's manipulation by default. Sartre calls this bad faith, the lie we tell ourselves to avoid facing the uncomfortable truth of our freedom and responsibility. You tell yourself you need their approval. You convince yourself that their care defines your value. But it's all illusion, and by believing it, you surrender part of yourself, your autonomy, your clarity, your power. Look back at your life. How many decisions were guided by the need to maintain appearances? How many relationships endured only because of obligation, guilt, or fear? How often did you ignore your instincts, your desires, your own truth because you thought someone cared when, in reality, they were performing for their own benefit? The answer is probably more than you're willing to admit. This is the brutal psychology of pretending. It's not just that people don't care. They've trained you to act as if they do. You've been conditioned to dance to the rhythm of others' performances, losing pieces of yourself in the process, and that conditioning is subtle. It hides behind kindness, flattery, reassurance, and laughter. That's why it's so insidious. It feels comforting until it's too late. But here is the terrifying liberation. Once you see it, you can choose differently. You can measure actions, not words. You can observe patterns instead of taking appearances at face value. You can disengage from manipulative attention and redirect your energy toward what truly matters. And in that moment, you reclaim something invaluable, your freedom from the emotional games others play. The question now is, how far are you willing to go to see the truth? Will you keep accepting performance as genuine care, or will you confront the illusions, break the chains, and step into reality? Because freedom is not granted, it is recognized, and only those brave enough to see clearly can claim it. If you've reached this far, you see it clearly now. The smiles, the attention, the care you've been receiving. It was never truly about you. It was about them. And for years, you allowed yourself to be guided by performances, illusions, and empty gestures. That was the trap. But the moment you see it, the chains begin to fall. Recognition of this truth is not cruelty. It is liberation. Sartre teaches us that we are condemned to be free. Most people avoid this truth because freedom is terrifying. It demands responsibility, courage, and honesty with oneself. When you realize that no one owes you care, attention, or loyalty, it feels like a void at first, but that void is not emptiness. It is space. Space to act authentically. Space to choose yourself. Space to reclaim your life from the subtle manipulations that have governed it for so long. This is the ultimate lesson. Freedom doesn't come from others, from validation, or from love that isn't real. Freedom comes from clarity, seeing the world as it is, understanding the performances around you, and refusing to be caught in them. When you recognize that people only pretend to care, you stop performing in return. You stop bending, excusing, and sacrificing pieces of yourself. You reclaim the attention, energy, and choices that were always yours to begin with. And that is terrifying for some, liberating for others. Because once you step out of the illusion, life demands a new standard from you. You cannot hide behind excuses, distractions, or false relationships. You must act with authenticity, embrace responsibility, and make decisions that honor your freedom. That is the weight and the power of awareness. So take this knowledge, carry it with you, and observe the world carefully. See the performances, see the manipulations, see the fleeting gestures of attention for what they are, and most importantly, see yourself. Because once you understand the truth, you are no longer a pawn in other people's plays. You are the author of your own life. If this video has opened your eyes, if it has given you a taste of that liberating truth, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe and join a community that refuses illusions, embraces clarity, and chooses freedom over pretense. Your awareness is just the beginning. The world may still pretend, but now you no longer have to.